RNZ's National. New from Lucy Dacus, Hot and Heavy. I love this story too. She started writing the song thinking she was writing it about an old friend and then realised that she was writing it about a previous version of herself. It's 6 minutes to 2.
Up above the streets and houses, rainbow climbing high. Everyone can see it smiling over the sky. Paint the whole world with a rainbow.
Let's talk books with Rob's Book Quiz. And each Wednesday, just before the 2 p.m. news. Hi, Rob Kelly.
Kia ora, Jesse.
How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I've cut all my hair off, so now
Yes.
Now I feel like I can move at speed again. It's good.
Yeah. I think you did it before and after on Twitter, didn't you? For
So
people who are interested.
It was a fun year. It'd be fair to say that it didn't necessarily work. I know that you were a vocal critic.
No, Rob. Well, okay, but no, it was you, and now it's not you any longer, and it's just fine.
Yeah, I do miss that guy, and I will occasionally wonder what he's up to over the years. But
Did you get mistaken for a certain sort of person when you had long hair?
You get talked down to a little bit.
Funny, eh?
It was interesting to me. I was also interested by how readily people were willing to comment on your appearance, which I know isn't news to most people.
Yeah.
But for a kind of cisgender white guy with short hair, I've never experienced that before.
It was a free hit.
In that way.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to me to be like, oh, and from people who you might not expect it from as well. Yeah. I thought that was a really interesting insight into, very light insight into the way that happens all the time.
Rob, I so look forward to you. I get a little spring in my step on a Wednesday morning, knowing that you're coming in with the book quiz. And today I've got two new great books to choose between.
Excellent.
For the winner, they can either choose The Better Brain, How Nutrition Will Help You Overcome Anxiety, Depression, ADHD and Stress, or Beyond, The Astonishing Story of the First Human to Leave Our Planet and Journey into Space, the author of which I'm talking to after 3 o'clock today.
Brilliant. Two really cerebral options there, but in completely different directions.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So over to you with the quiz.
Okay. So the way this works is I'm going to read out 3 or 4 books that all share a theme or a thread or something that connects them. And during the news, please text in what you think that is to 2101, and we will pick out a winner if someone gets it off the bat. And we usually come back with the answers directly after 2, but that might be slightly different today depending on live coverage.
You were expecting a big announcement at 2, non-COVID related, more of the fun variety, but more on that in a moment.
So here are the books. Going back to the 19th century, Jesse, The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, which is the first of a certain kind of story. Well, one of the first.
Not to be confused with The Taming of the Shrew.
No, although a wonderful mashup opportunity.
Yeah, like Tess of the Baskervilles.
That's such a good title. The second book is one with a New Zealand connection, The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold and The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I'm giving you a few books today. So the third one is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier.
I'm on to you, Rob Kelly.
You on to me?
Yeah.
You got me sussed?
Yeah.
Excellent. Do you want one more?
Yeah.
I'm going to do a New Zealand example, and it's non-fiction. And it's called Where the Wind Calls Your Name by Tahu Potiki and Grant Shanks.
Wow.
Not a book I knew about until today, and it's one that I'm going to have to go and find. It's out of print, but that will never stop me. So I'll go and find it. So Where the Wind Calls Your Name by Tahu Potiki and Grant Shanks. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. What connects all of these books?
What books have you got on the go at the moment?
Well, I'm reading Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon.
I've read that one.
Have you?
It's great. Is it? That's the kind of the superhero tale.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
It's the cartoonists.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, and they're coming up with the escapist. And it's all based around kind of escaping from Nazi Germany, as well as the kind of moment of massive imagination that hit the comic book industry in the US. I'm loving it.
I might be thinking of another one. There's one where someone gets a cape or something and they learn to fly, and it's about boyhood.
I think that's a different
friendships.
Might be a different book.
Okay, someone will remind me who it is.
But yeah, I'm really enjoying that. I love Michael Chabon, but I'd never read anything other than the Yiddish Policeman's Union, which I laughed. So I'm really enjoying getting into that. But I'm also rereading James Bellich's New Zealand Wars from 1986, which is a really interesting thing to do now, because it's still a very good book, but it's interesting to see how the thinking's changed between then and now. I'm really enjoying that.
Good one, Robert. Well, we'll see you after the 2 p.m. weather with the book quiz answer, and if you think you've got it, send us a text on 2101 and you can choose between one of these two beautiful brand new books. I'm just going to smell them.
Get it in.
New book smell.
Love it.
So good.
It's all glue, Jesse. You're just sniffing glue.
RNZ News at 2. Good afternoon. I'm Marama Tipole. An announcement from...
You're going to start.
Ia te au le awa ma le whalualu tele. Ia o tau pa ia ma o tau mamalu, ma o lunga nei aso. A vea lo leo whamafonga tau molimoli o le mātou o le ipule ia Mark Robinson. E mais fo i le chair o New Zealand Rugby, ia Brent Impey. E mais fo i le fionga ia Sāvai. Sir Michael Jones. E mais fo i nei Bailey Mackey. Mātou senior exec o New Zealand Rugby, mātou fōi le matanga luenga o New Zealand Rugby, mātou talo whalawa, mā lao le soifu maua ma le langi e mamā, ua mātou mo whia nei aso a wā o tau o maile nei wha moe moe. Warm Pacific greetings everyone, I'm Ronnie Clark, I'm the New Zealand Rugby's Pasifika Engagement Manager, and it's my role here today to welcome you all here. Thank you so much for coming and joining us here. I'd like to welcome you all here on behalf of our CE, Mark Robinson, also our chair of our board, Brent Impey, and members of our board who are present here, of course, Sāvai, Sir Michael Jones and Bailey Mackey, our senior exec of New Zealand Rugby, and of course our hard-working staff here at New Zealand Rugby too, just to welcome you all here today. In particular, I'd like to welcome the patron of the Moana Pasifika and our former president of New Zealand Rugby, Rea Whionga ia Tuawhasina, Sir Brian Williams, here on my left, but also to also welcome here the co-chairs of the Moana Pasifika Committee, Pelenato Sakalia, and also to Tevita Funaki, and the esteemed members of the Committee of Moana Pasifika here today as well, but also to welcome in particular our New Zealand Rugby Players Association, our Pasifika Players Association that are here as well. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome you all here too, our media, Pasifika, and also to our media here in Aotearoa. Welcome, welcome. Just quickly, e whelelei manu ai ma'aui o lātou o whanga is a Samoan proverb that speaks about migrating birds, and it speaks often that it says that birds migrate to environments where they survive and they thrive. In Aotearoa, the aspiration of our Pasifika people, of hopes and dreams to not just survive, but to thrive, to flourish and succeed today is really a realization of those hopes and dreams today. So I welcome you all here. Maro lava. Team, just before I invite Sir Michael to come and speak and address us and make the announcement, I just want to let you know, after our last speaker, who will be Mark Robinson, you'll be open to questions at that time. So if you can hold our questions until all of our speakers and Mark Robinson. So at this time, please welcome Sir Michael Jones. Whakatau Sāvai.
Whakatau lava mālo saungo, sa vea tama e Ronnie. Kia ora koutou, talofa lava, mālo lei, Nissan Bulavinaka. I'm absolutely delighted and extremely excited on behalf of New Zealand Rugby, on behalf of Chair Brent Impey, our board, Exec and CEO Mark Robinson, and just the whole our whānau to officially announce that New Zealand Rugby has awarded licenses, conditional licenses for both the Rua of Fiji and Moana Pacifica. Words cannot express how I think proud I am personally, not just of the board of New Zealand Rugby and our wonderful founder at New Zealand Rugby for the passion they've shown and I suppose the commitment they've shown to ensure that this day has finally arrived. It has been a journey, and we acknowledge those stakeholders of New Zealand, of not just New Zealand Rugby, but Pacifica Rugby, the unions of Samoa Rugby Union, the chairman and board of Tonga Rugby Union, the chairman and board of Fiji Rugby Union, and I suppose the bigger journey that has been Pacifica Rugby, particularly on the global stage. And I'm just delighted to be part of an NZR, I suppose, family that have identified the importance of making sure that we can ensure that both the Drua and the Moana Pacifica super teams, there is a new professional competition we're talking about next year. I don't know if we can call it Super Rugby, but we're definitely calling it a new professional rugby competition for 2022. And the fact that we're here with some of the key stakeholders from Moana Pacifica, not just the acting CEO, Nato Sakalia, of course, patron Sir B.G. Williams, and of course a lot of the board. And we recognise and acknowledge the fact that the Drua community and the Fiji Rugby Union can't be here because of COVID. But I can assure you that there's celebrations and probably dancing on the streets of many of the villages out there in the Pacific. When I talk about the journey, it has been not just a 25-year-old journey in the fact that since professional rugby came on board, I think there's always been a desire and there's always been aspirations that Pacifica Rugby, in some form or shape, are involved in professional rugby, particularly in this part of the world and the Super Rugby competitions of the past 25 years. And it would be fair to say that in fact, the journey has probably been even longer. Some of these unions have been just as old as New Zealand Rugby Union, both Fiji, Tonga and Samoa, and their own respective journeys to climb the ladder of World Rugby and to ensure that at some point, if they're not in a semi-final of a World Rugby tournament, they're in the top 8. And I think we all agree this part of if that happens anytime soon, that's and I think that's what has been the aspiration for stakeholders of Pacific Rugby, and it's definitely something that we at New Zealand Rugby totally believe in. In this part of the world, we probably do see ourselves as, in some respects, the big brother. One of a better word, but we're intricately connected and engaged in so many levels with Pacific Island Rugby. Pacific Island Rugby has made such a contribution to New Zealand Rugby. It wasn't lost on those of us in the game. That last year's All Blacks, 50% of that team that Ian Foster selected were of Pacific heritage. The contribution of Pacific people to our game over a long, long time, and I see Sir BG here, who was my boyhood hero. He broke the ceiling for us as a generation, not just for Pacific young men and women, and we acknowledge our wahine tour here today, but also every single Kiwi boy and girl who has a dream of rugby, particularly of my generation. And it'll be great to hear a bit about his own context on this. But you know, for us at New Zealand Rugby, we recognise that whilst there is a few more bits of fine-tuning to do in terms of the conditions, and they're not major. Obviously, we've got to just finalise some communication with Rugby Australia on just how that competition looks for next year, and they're an important partner in this. But also with regards just some finalising of that business plan, and thankfully there's a great team around Moana Pacific, and we've been very impressed with the calibre of the people who have been diligently working, not just in terms of Moana Pacifica's credible and very compelling business case, which Fiji Rugby and the Drua, and I know Robert will be agree with me on that. It's been very impressive, the work that's been done, so that we can ensure that come 2022, the mystique, the unique flavour, everything that Pacific Rugby brings will be will spice up that Rugby competition for 2022. It's going to have a look and feel and touch like never before. And I think for us and what we understand about what the fans want, that's what they've been telling us anyway. And it's just so perfect timing. You know, some things happen in seasons, some things are meant to happen in a certain time in history, and we believe that time is now, and that season is right here and right now. And so we go with a great amount of passion and confidence into the future. You know, these become pathways for young, aspiring Pacific men, and eventually we believe, hopefully, a women's program. But not just from the Pacific, obviously, but we also believe that there's a generation of Pacific young men and women here in Aotearoa where pathways can not always, go directly into the All Blacks. That is a powerful dream, but there's no doubt there's aspirations and winning hearts and minds that we believe that both these rugby franchises will achieve. We believe in winning the hearts and minds of many more Pacific people, and not just young men and women who want to play the game and engage in our beloved game, the great game of rugby, but we also believe that there'll be fans and there'll be a connection even stronger than ever before, particularly from our Pacific communities, not just in the Pacific, but around the region. And I think this is all part of a bigger picture for us as New Zealand Rugby, a bigger reach into this part of the world. And again, I just acknowledge the vision and passion of the people who have been driving the Moana Pacifica and the Drua and Fiji Rugby, Tonga Samoa, but also our own people. And I do want to acknowledge our chairman, Brent Impey, who's had a particular passion for this to happen. And I do want to acknowledge Brent at this time and some very key board members, all of our board. And I know Robbo and the rest of the broader NZR family have really believed in this kaupapa. And so here we are. We absolutely see it as an extension of our great game. And as I mentioned, the winning of hearts and minds, let us not underestimate how powerful that is. You know, I'm a true believer that rugby is a game that is a vehicle for transformation and empowerment. I'm a byproduct of that. As a young man who had dreams growing up in West Auckland of Polynesian descent, this was my inspiration, Sir BG, and I'm going to pass to him because we all wanted to be like BG. We all wanted to be All Blacks. But, he made us believe that it was possible. And I think that is the opportunity, that there'll be a new generation of another additional generation, and we all look to our All Blacks, we all look to our super rugby players who are up there. But there'll be if I could say, if we extend the access of more and more young men and women into our game, we've got to believe that there's going to be a higher peak and greater outcome along the way in those pathways. So how's that? I'm going to leave that there. I just want to say thank you. I could go for another hour because I'm just so passionate about this, as you can appreciate, as we all are, as our team is. I'm going to hand over now to Sir BG Williams, who's got a few words to say, and maybe we'll share a bit more on the context and even the journey. He's been very much at the forefront of that. He's been, we see him as I suppose as our, as our mentor, but we also see him as a father figure and a bit of the heart and soul of this kaupapa. So I'm going to hand over to Sir BG, Kawawhionga, to your whasasina, Haftai
Kia ora, talofa lava, maloelele, bulavinaka. I am absolutely chuffed. I just want to give you a bit of historical perspective on the journey, I guess, that I've been on. From then, 25 years ago, the Rugby World Cup in South Africa was taking place. Those of you who are old enough will remember there was a real battle for control of World Rugby. The World Rugby Corporation was making a bid, and the establishment obviously needed to hold on to our great game. And there was a real battle going on behind the scenes. Everyone was trying to find a place in professional rugby. but unfortunately the Pacific Islands got left out. And I'm really, it's been 25 years, I guess, of a sense of huge disappointment and grievance about the fact that Pacific Islands were left out of the mainstream professional competitions. I was coaching Samoa at that time, and we'd played in Super 10 prior to that, and we'd played, international rugby prior to that as well. We'd made quarterfinals at the 91 and 95 World Cups. Fiji made the quarterfinals in 1987. Tonga did so well in the 2007 Rugby World Cup, and here we are left out in the cold. So as you can imagine, a great sense of disappointment, not only for me but for so many. So the journey has taken us to here. Samoa obviously were ranked in the top 8 back in those days, and so were Fiji. What's happened because of not being involved, I think, in mainstream competition is the standard has gradually dropped to the point where Samoa, Tonga, Fiji is probably a wee bit higher ranked, but Samoa, for example, is 16th at the moment, having been a quarter finalist at 2 World Cups. So that's been the degradation, I suppose, of our game, because the players weren't allowed to play in mainstream competition. So Michael also coached Samoa during the period, and I just want to emphasise the fact to all of you that we're true blue Kiwis, we're true blue All Blacks, we're true blue Aucklanders and Blues supporters, but we happen to wear this other hat, which is the blood that courses through our veins. And that's why we want this to happen. And it is happening. Great stuff. Listen, without any further ado, as you can see, I'm pretty passionate about this. Thank you all for coming, and I guess there'll be some questions later. Thank you.
Malo everyone. It's been the 4th act to follow these 3 legends. It's a bit difficult, but I want to start off by firstly thanking the Moana Pasifika Steering Committee. We're a bunch of individuals that came together over a period of time to bring together our collective skills and experience, which is the Pacific Way. Each person kind of chips in what they can, to try and find a way forward to pursue the bold aspiration that Sir Brian has just talked about. I also want to acknowledge the board. While it's been a tough journey, while there's been a lot of disagreements and a lot of challenges, for Moana Pasifika, the decision that's been made by the board is a bold call. It's a bold call. There's, apologies. There's a lot of hard work that needs to be done. A lot of hard work. But the responsibility that we carry is a burden. But, the emotions from the 3 legends before, it falls on the likes of the steering committee and those of us that are the support partners to bring this thing home. What the board and the exec have done is empowered us to make this a reality. The empowerment model is something that Moana Pasifika and Fiji will embrace. It's in our blood. It's what we do. We have the people, we have the numbers, and more importantly, we've got the diverse skill sets that you need to make this a reality. There is no doubting the talent that exists within Pasifika. You all know that. But we need a way to harness our people, our culture, our stories, and blend it with the commercial business skills that we need to succeed as a professional organisation, but then also attract the right people to coach and manage. I wasn't going to cry, but it was Charlotte's fault. But, you know, if I can just say, I just want to acknowledge just a few organisations who, without this, we would not be here. I want to acknowledge Impact for their support behind the scenes. You know, they contributed big time. To our partners, Deloitte, for bringing us the technical capabilities that we needed. But also we want to acknowledge our Pacific organisations that have come in behind us, you know, to back us up. It's these organisations that are going to come to the fore now that NZR has had the courage to bestow this opportunity. That's what's going to be revealed, and we look forward to the opportunity to kind of put it on the field. Thank you.
Maro lava, warm Pacific greetings, everyone. As Pelinato said, it's a pretty hard act to follow that group of esteemed gentlemen and those words, and it's incredible to see the passion and the sense of almost destiny for these two teams. At the start, I want to recognise obviously all of the contributors today from Moana Pacifica, but we have some friends who are absent today from the Drua and Fiji that we must recognise as well. I was in contact this morning with Conway Begg and John O'Connor out of Fiji, and just reassuring them that we'd miss them today, and they're also going to be a big part of what is an extremely exciting competition we're looking forward to from next year and beyond. I guess it's my job to just sprinkle a dose of reality on today and still say we have a little bit of work to do. But you've seen today that huge amount of drive and ambition and aspiration that sits across these two teams to bring all of this to life. And we're absolutely walking with them lockstep to make sure that we can be a part of that success as well. So we are, finalising business plans, as we've spoken to already, so we're conditional on that. And obviously our friends at Rugby Australia, we have ongoing dialogue there that we'll continue to participate in. That's very constructive at the moment and in very regular contact with. So I know there's going to be a few questions. I won't go too much further apart from thank you all for being here. I think the turnout is symbolic too of the genuine interest in this and the sense that we are on the frontier of something extremely exciting for our competitions going forward that will elevate this competition more than just about rugby. It will be about the way we bring different communities and different cultures to life and together, and that is something within New Zealand rugby in terms of our ambition to inspire and unify and live by what we call the rugby way, that is really powerful at the moment, and something that we live with day by day in terms of our responsibility we have to our community and our country and our game for that matter. And we know that rugby is a hugely powerful vehicle in making those sort of things happen. So thanks again for coming. We'll open it up to questions. I know I'll be probably last, so we'll welcome everyone forward and hopefully we can...
Tim, just as we do that with the question and answers, later on too you'll have an opportunity to just one-on-one with any of our guests that are here. Just direct those, just let Charlotte know that who you'd like to speak to. That'll be great, all right? Please open them up for questions. Thank you.
PG, could you ever have imagined 20 odd years ago that a Pacific team in Super Rugby would become a reality, if you're honest with yourself?
Well, I certainly could. And as I said, it probably should have happened 25 years ago. But having said that, everyone at the time was because of this challenge from World Rugby Corporation. They needed to look after their own affairs, I guess, and their own aspirations. And as a result, we got left out in the cold. And as I say, it was hugely disappointing at the time, but here we are, and I'm very thankful. I think New Zealand Rugby has taken, as Pelinato said, taken a very bold step. With Super Rugby previously, I was involved coaching the Hurricanes about 20 years ago, and the travel factor in Super Rugby is just debilitating. It really is, and very costly as well. So, a lot of thought has gone into how this competition can be structured to make sure that it's not too costly and including the Pacific Islands. So it's great.
Just following on from that, why now? Why are we seeing this now?
Better now than never. Better now than never.
What factors have led, as it's been mentioned, there's a bit of a history to this, but why now? What's kind of sparked this, or what's the catalyst?
Can I help you? Yeah. Well, it's a combination of factors, isn't it? And we've taken some time, certainly in the recent months, and certainly since the the reality of COVID has taken shape, and looked at really our place in the world and how rugby might look like in the future. And then was also, alongside that, those macro issues which are significant at an international level also. We've taken some time to make sure that anything we do with our competition comes with an absolute commitment to quality. So the teams coming in have to be sustainable and commercially viable, and they have to play at an extremely high level and be highly competitive. So taking the time to make sure that all of those criteria are in place and being met has taken some time to work through. So I'm not going to go back 25 years, it'd be fair to say, but I certainly can speak to the last 12 to 14 months in terms of some of the considerations we've been having, and in constant dialogue with the teams around some of the expectations that we have, and also hearing from them some of the realities they are working from. And I think we've come to a stage where we're in a really good middle ground at the moment, and looking forward to working forward.
Excellent. And just following on from that, where are things at with the Silver Lake negotiations?
Can we pick up on that later? I'm happy to talk about one of my. Yeah. I mean, there's no change. I might as well answer it, and then everyone can leave me alone later on it. So, it is the same as we last time we spoke publicly in this. We're continuing our consultation with a whole range of different stakeholders. We are working towards a potential decision at the end of this month around the AGM. We're making sure that all relevant stakeholders and partners in this work are having ample opportunity to ask questions and find out all the information they need to make an informed decision. And yeah, that's essentially where we're at. We remain hugely excited about the possibilities that are involved with bringing an investment partner into rugby in New Zealand, and we see that benefiting the entire game, as we've talked about regularly. So with that regard, there's no real change at this stage here.
Thank you.
Well, we're just on the rugby, bring it back in. You mentioned talks are constructive with Rugby Australia. What more needs to happen in the discussions between NZR and RA to get final, I suppose, approval for these two teams?
Well, we're partners with Rugby Australia in the competition, obviously, along with the teams we're working with that we're talking about today. So there's a whole range of things up at the moment around potential models, governance structure, looking at a potential commission that will have oversight of things like laws, innovations, rules that we're excited about, because we're in a more closer proximity to look at some of those things. Finals formats, there's any range of things, a lot of detail to work through there. So in principle, they share our excitement and optimism about this opportunity, but like us also, they want to make sure that we have absolute detail around the financial model that we're looking at, and some of the other things we talked to about competitive balance and all those sorts of things.
So, Michael, how do you think this news is going to be received, particularly by younger members of the Pacifica community?
It's going to be so well received. It will bring a lot of joy, a lot of hope, and I think a lot of a sense of belief that something that has been a long-held dream and aspiration is we're on the crust of that becoming into fruition, and that looking to 2022 and that new professional competition, it's gonna I think there will be some genuine celebration around. I'm just trying to think if the streets of up here will be as loud as it was when BG did so well in the '91 World Cup. I don't know if it'll be that loud, but absolutely across the Pacifica communities. We Pacific people love rugby. It's in their DNA, like Kiwis. It's part of their culture and who they are in the very fabric of society. And so I think they'll see this as, potentially a trigger or something that will continue to stimulate the game, but it will continue to raise up generations who will not only potentially pursue their dreams, but engage in something that's really good for them as young men and women, particularly our rangatahi, our tamariki. And, as New Zealand Rugby's vision says, the power to unify and inspire, we can't underestimate how big this will be. So, there'll be genuine, joy, I believe, and particularly those who have gone before us. And, there's been, I'm talking as Pacific rugby players, there's a whole generation that have gone before us who believed in this and actually, I suppose, blood, sweat and tears were shed to see a day like this arrive. So, we acknowledge those who have gone before. And then there's a whole lot of stakeholders in our game, and we have some of our representatives of our women's game here, not just in New Zealand Rugby, but in Pacific Rugby. And of course, there's the connection I can't underestimate too, and and the importance of that connection between our Pacific communities here and in the region. So I think that bond and that connection will only grow and be enhanced through this kind of news and this kind of special day that we're witnessing and being part of today.
And are you confident that the teams will be quite competitive, able to go at it with our best?
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about a journey of any new team, and we've seen some teams where it's taken a bit longer, and we think maybe of what happened with the Sunwolves, but in some senses they were coming right after 2 or 3 years. But I'm sure New Zealand Rugby and the organisers and of course Moana Pacific and the Drill have a lot of confidence that their journey will be pretty quick. They'll come up to speed. I mean, you're talking about 30 Pacific Island boys in this case, and they're quick learners. And when they marry that natural talent with a real professional structure, and they've got that whole, I suppose, scaffolding around them, which is going to be really outstanding. We've seen some of the work around not just growing their rugby sense, but growing them as young men to be all they can be and fulfill their promise and their potential. So I think that team will come up to speed pretty quickly. I have a lot of confidence in that actually, but we're not expecting. It could be 2 or 3 seasons we might see one of those teams in a semi-final against the Blues, or was it the Crusaders? Did you say the Blues? Either or. Yeah. But most certainly, what we are seeing too today is by announcing this today, and this was really important, is that those franchises can really get moving and get cracking around finalising those team lists. They've got some great potential coaches coming on board, and it's really important that they get on the front foot and sign those players up, get those coaches on board and start doing the mahi, so to speak. And so we've got a lot of confidence in their ability to do that.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. One day at a time.